So I'll just do a quick intro. I hope you can see my slides. Marta, everybody can see my slides? Yeah. So, just briefly, the InnoDays have the mission to connect companies with innovators to prototype solution for innovation challenges within 48 hours. On one side, our goal is to enable companies to open up their innovation process, to co-create new ideas with a positive impact together with young talents, such as most of us or most of you, I should say. I'm no longer young and I'm no longer talent, but to really create new ideas together. And participants are invited to join from all over the world. While we won't have the pleasure of meeting us in person, given the current crisis, I think we want to do the best that we can to leverage the affordances of digital technology. So it's really great to bring together people from around the world with diverse skills from design, technical, and business backgrounds. And our process is a customer-focused agile process to really develop and test ideas very quickly. So I'll quickly show you the overall process. We now today kick off with the challenge briefing, and then each of the participant is invited and encouraged to share an inspiration to get the brainstorming going. During the event, then from April 9th to April 11th, we'll turn ideas into prototypes within 48 hours. And then hopefully in the phase that follows the event, many of you will be inspired to continue with the implementation of your idea, ideally with the support of our company partner, EDF. The schedule is focused on day one on ideation, where you get together with your team, you develop a shared understanding of your value proposition of your customers that you want to deliver value for. Then day two, prototyping, where you turn your ideas into something tangible, whether that's a digital prototype or if you have physical artifacts to show how your solution could work. We want to show those solutions by the end of the 48 hours. On day three, validate. For instance, in terms of prototype, you can see here a photo of a combination of a digital and a physical prototype for a large juice manufacturing company. They've asked how fruit juice can be reimagined for the year 2025. And you can see that the team has created a combination of a digital interface where you can order your customized juice, and then they work with cardboard to create this artifact. Physical prototyping might be a little more difficult during the current time, but we will have a lot of tools for you to make your ideas tangible during the 48 hours. With regards to the overall schedule, we decided to have a joint opening and a joint closing that hopefully works for all of us with some inconveniences. So we have the same timing, which is 10 p.m. in China, 4 p.m. in Europe, and 7 a.m. in California. Same with the closing, 48 hours later. And then besides this global schedule, we'll have a region-specific local schedule where no matter where you are, whether you're in China, in Europe, or in the US on the West Coast, you will always have a morning check-in with your lead mentor at 9. You will have mentoring slots at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and then an evening progress update at 6 p.m. So that's always your local time. We will have lead mentors who will guide you from idea to prototype during the process, and they will check in with you in the morning to walk you through the program of the day, the questions you might have. Then we'll have a pool of experts. Mentors are both from our company partners and experts in micromobility and mobility that will be available to give you advice, to answer your questions, to ask questions about your idea, to help you make great progress during the time. And then evening, there's a check-in where the team is expected to then share their progress and mention what are the things that you're working on and what are things where you might still struggle with. Okay, so we have these local schedules. So we'll have 3 check-ins globally, but if you are located in China, in Europe, or the US, it's always 9 a.m. in the morning, 2 p.m. in the afternoon for mentoring, and 6 p.m. for the evening progress update. I mentioned already that teams are comprised of different backgrounds. So the key requirement for every team is to bring together somebody with a design background, somebody with a technical background, and somebody with a business background. We want to avoid that we have, let's say, a team of only Berkeley engineers together, or only Innsbruck business or design participants. So diversity will really enhance the quality and the innovativeness of your idea. So we encourage you to mix up and to also bring in additional participants that can enrich your team skill set. Team formation will be based on the best ideas. Marta will share more about the inspiration phase after we heard about the challenge. And as I said, our goal is really to mix skills. So we will co-create those teams during the inspiration phase. We are probably looking at an audience from around the world. So it would be great to have cross-country teams, but to make it manageable for the lead mentors, we will have the lead mentor that will work with you based on where the majority of your team sits. So if you're a team, let's say with 3 Austrian students, then you have, let's say, somebody from China and somebody from the US, then hopefully you can all come together during the morning and evening update meetings. In terms of tools, we will use Zoom like we're using now for the real-time communication. So the webinars where we do the opening and the closing, and then the update meetings with the lead mentors and the mentoring sessions, they will be via Zoom. You will see a schedule where you can then sign up and see an overview with all the links for the different meetings. We'll share that in our coordination channel, which is Slack, which serves as our support forum for discussions. And during the whole day, regardless of the time zone, we'll have somebody in the sort of the info desk taking your questions and also being able to talk with you in a Zoom channel. Collaboration, we'll use a collaboration platform called Sprint-based. Marta will share more about that. So communication in real-time Zoom, coordination and text-based asynchronous communication Slack, and collaboration Sprint-based. I see there's some questions on chat. I don't know whether we want to take some questions now on just general questions about the process. Jack, can you maybe share the questions with me? Since
I think we're all good on questions. The one thing I would mention is that there is a Slack channel for introductions. So all of you who are participating, go on to Slack and introduce yourselves, what your background is and what your particular interests are.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we can come back to questions, but maybe I'll turn it over to Katie or the EDF team together to briefly introduce the challenge, and then we can go into questions on anything challenge specific, but also later we'll have time to answer any questions about the InnoDays process and team formation, how that will work, and Marta will also share the next steps with you in terms of the submission of the inspiration video. With that, Katie?
Sure, yeah, I can start, and then maybe Paul and David can fill in any gaps that I leave. So I'm Katie. I'm from the Innovation Lab in Los Altos, California, and I lead the e-mobility program. We're working on a lot of exciting topics, and this hackathon challenge is more focused on our work around micromobility, social equity, and a little bit autonomous vehicles. You can read the question: how might we create innovative combinations of a new light electric vehicle design, business model, and customer engagement that creates community social equity for both passenger and goods delivery? So to break that down, we want it to be not a typical hackathon and just a coding solution, to be able to combine vehicle form factor in the design, an innovative business model, and a customer engagement tool like an app or software. Whether it's a couple of those, all three of those, one really strong version of one of those, I think we're okay with any of those. Obviously, a more powerful submission will include a couple of those different factors, but it's a little bit flexible on that. Light electric vehicle, it's our EDF term for micromobility, to expand the idea from just a small push scooter to also include sort of any size between a scooter and a car. So to be open on that. Community social equity, as in expanding access to micromobility for all types of people, families to bring their kids, people to bring groceries home, low income communities to access this type of transportation, maybe for work or for personal use. And then the last part, thinking about the combination of both passenger and goods delivery, especially in this time of COVID-19. There's been a lot of innovative delivery techniques, and we think there's a lot of potential in micromobility, even before COVID, but for logistics and delivery of packages or food or groceries. So that's our prompt challenge for you guys. I don't know, Paul or David, if you have anything to add, your sides.
Thanks, Katie. Maybe just to give some additional perspective on the problem that we're trying to solve. Maybe if Paul or David can elaborate a little bit on what's the problem when we look at scooters. I think everybody from around the world has seen those kick scooters. Maybe just share with us what are some of the things that currently don't work with these modes, with these ways of, or these form factors, and what do you envision in terms of solutions?
Sure, this is Paul speaking. I think everybody who's seen the kick scooters or ridden one, if you've ridden one safely, you probably think they are lots of fun. Or if you've watched other people on them, they look like they're lots of fun. And as somebody who has ridden one and has one, I can attest to that. But they're also quite unsafe for not only the riders, but also other people who may be stepping over them or tripping on the sidewalks. So there's a number of safety issues, obviously. There's also a lot of challenges in terms of how you're able to ecologically charge them and park them and redistribute them with the rebalancing. So there's a number of challenges with them. And I think what we are looking at as we move forward over the next few years is some sort of convergence, and is the expression being used for a lot of industries these days, a Cambrian explosion of new types of light electric vehicles between the traditional car and perhaps the e-scooter and bike concepts of personal mobility. And so we're very interested, not being an automotive type of manufacturing company, in what these new types of vehicles could look like and what types of services they could provide. Perhaps it's for bringing one person from point A to point B, or multiple people, or packages, or some combination thereof. And then when we think about it as an energy company, what types of energy systems will they need? How much will they need? The batteries and the charging networks and the intersection thereof. So maybe I'll pause there. Are there any other specific points anybody wants to bring from the EDF side, or Thomas, if there's anything else we should address?
I don't know, maybe David, you want to elaborate a little bit on the goods delivery and maybe your perspective in the Asian market, or anything else you want to add? I think the goal is just to to shed a light on different problem aspects, which could then be starting point for the inspiration of the participants.
Yeah, well, China is different in many ways, and we've seen a Precambrian explosion of different form factors. We don't have scooters here particularly. They were banned by the government a couple of years ago, but what we do have is lots of shared bicycles, which have been a big problem in the cities, piling up in big mountains of cheap metal. We're also beginning to see electric bikes and electric electric mopeds are becoming more and more popular. But something that is particularly interesting in China is three-wheel delivery vehicles for the last mile delivery, of which there are millions across China. And so they can be a bit of a problem. So what we're looking at here is how can you combine last mile logistics with mobility in a way that doesn't crowd the city streets. So there's some different challenges here, but I think they're quite, some of the fundamentals would be quite similar to what Paul is experiencing in the US.
I can add a little bit also just to bring up more of the problem that we're facing of, I think maybe we're all really familiar with mobility, so we pass over it, but increases in CO2 emissions, congestion, and affordability. And we think micromobility targets all three of those by reducing traffic in cities, obviously using less power than a big delivery truck or a diesel bus, hopefully, or SUV. So looking at those problems.
On the social equity part, I remember Paul was talking about just the problem that oftentimes these new types of micromobility are only accessible to a privileged audience. So if one of you can briefly share your perspective on this social equity angle.
Sure. So here in the U.S., again, I apologize. We often have a very U.S. perspective, or wherever we are from. A lot of the e-scooter companies are being forced to distribute their vehicles into lower income areas because they would prefer often not to, and they have not, due to the fact that sometimes the vandalism or theft rate could be higher. And then you could imagine from other types of vehicle, perhaps the car sharing, where perhaps there could be a car sharing program put into a higher income or lower income area. Perhaps it would be utilized more in a higher income area. And so there's not as much access to mobility. So for instance, I went to a conference a year ago, the Micromobility conference, which was involved in this challenge a year ago. And one of the speakers proposed in a similar way that we might have universal basic income as a concept to be considered. You might have universal basic mobility. And the question is, how can we help this team of people assembled and we as companies to be able to enable mobility for more people? So as Katie mentioned, it's not only to reduce any of the environmental impacts and other negative aspects, but also really the economics of it as well. And access. Katie or David, anything else?
I might hop in just for a second on the social equity perspective to add a slightly different note, which is that electric vehicles in the US to a large extent, and maybe to a slightly, it's slightly different from what I've observed in China from several years ago, but they have a bit of a visibility problem and an image problem where they're kind of perceived as much more of a like higher class, particularly in the Bay Area use, and not like the transportation for everyone. And so working against that image is something that is worth thinking about.
Thanks, Jack, for this edition. I'll leave it up to you, Jack, to maybe take questions from the participants?
We are still waiting on questions in the chat. So now that we've kind of introduced the format and the challenge, all of you online, please hop in and ask things that are as they come up. I will give it a minute or so for y'all to enter these, and then we can also answer them at the very end. But we'll give that minute and then move into turning it over to Marta for the breakdown on how to use our sprint-based platform.
Perhaps I can also step in quickly. Now we've talked about the scenarios in the US and in China as well. We also have a lot of European participants and also a couple of participants from other regions of the world, in particular Southeast Asia. So I think it's good that you European and non-American, non-Chinese participants also think about your own context and how micromobility looks like there, and can also provide perhaps a more contextualized answer to this question, looking at what you are experiencing in your own countries, because that's, I think, could also be a valuable angle that might be interesting for EDF to explore and to open up potential new solutions moving forward. So do not think that if you have not been in the US or you don't know China that well, then you're not qualified to answer to this challenge in a important way. So just think about, reflect more about what is mobility and micromobility in your countries, and how you can make a valid contribution looking at what's around you.
Thank you, Marta. Question for Tomas. Will the mentors be available at times other than the specified mentoring sessions?
So mentoring can be more flexible than the predefined time slots. You can also do that on a case-to-case basis. Let's say you start out with a mentor and there's more questions for this mentor, then you can just schedule something with them if they're available. We will have several mentoring sessions throughout a 24-hour cycle. So we have one sort of optimized mentoring slot in the mid-afternoon, but you can also join mentoring slots where we have the US mentors or the Chinese mentors. So please take advantage of those other mentoring time slots. And then sometimes the mentors, they will stay longer, or you are able to just coordinate additional timings with them. So it can be fairly flexible, but overall we have those time slots that are open for everyone to join. So let's say if you're in Europe, you might as well join also the mentoring sessions in the US and in China, as long as timing permits.
One question that I think is best addressed by the EDF team: should we find a solution addressing the issues in all of the different countries, or rather focusing on one?
I think one is definitely okay. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say I think one, but fundamentally the model is quite simple, which is micromobility is about societies interacting with the geography of a city, and so there might be some underlying principles that apply to any society in any city, but I think they definitely have to be tailored to the specifics of that society and that city. So what will work in Beijing will probably not work in Paris, for example.
Thank you, David. There's another question about the Slack URL of the workspace. I'm going to go ahead and just post that in the chat to answer that one. We have one other question about the self-introduction, which I'm going to bump to the end because I think that it may be addressed to some degree by Marta in the next section. So I think with that, I'll post the Slack URL and turn it over to Marta to talk about our collaboration platform, and how you can submit deliverables throughout the challenge.
Thank you, Jack. So I was not planning to overwhelm you with information about all our process today. I think we will have time later on, both before the InnoDays and during the InnoDays, to go through each step. But I just wanted to give you like a preview of what the next steps for you will be in the coming week. So from now until April 6th, you will receive a link to Sprintbase, which is software that we're gonna use. And it's a platform that has been designed by a consultant that is focusing on design thinking. So they have a quite easy process to handle, and we will take advantage of their infrastructure to sort of guide you through an ideation process and have a better story to tell at the end of the InnoDays. So what you're expected to do by April 6th, as we mentioned before, is to start think about how you could possibly solve this challenge of EDF. And the way that you will communicate to us is by creating a 2-minute pitch video or video pitch. So in this video, you just briefly tell who you are and what's your background and how you see this possible solution to a challenge. Then if you do not have an idea on how you can solve the challenge, then you can do some research about this problem and think about perspectives that are interesting for you. So for instance, you can make some readings and you will discover that, I don't know, a lot of disabled people have certain needs that are currently not covered by micromobility. So we will see that you have a certain interest in connecting, for instance, disability and how micromobility can be helped. And perhaps we can match you with somebody who has a little bit of a more focused idea. So there are 2 things that you can decide. Either you make a video with a formed solution on how to solve this challenge, or you just share some insights regarding topics that are tangent to this challenge and that you would be interested to dig deeper and work with during the InnoDays. So once you have created this video, you can get access to the platform. And then maybe Thomas, you can change the slide so that we see. And you will see there is like a red button on the only step that is available, which is step 1. You see platform, in the top there is design challenge, and then on step 1, which is the one on the left side, yes, exactly where the pointer is now with the little star, that's the only one where you will have access. And then you will see 2 tabs. The first tab is the one with guidance that sort of re-explain what a video should look like. And then you have the workspace. The workspace is where you will upload your video. So you will just click on this green button with add, and you will get different choices. You could add pictures or other things. You just don't look at the other things, and you add a video. And you will get this window. It's very easy. Now it looks complex, but it's not. So you just click video, and then here you will have the possibility to upload this 2 minutes video. If you want to upload it on YouTube, then you can just share a link to a YouTube video in case it's too heavy because you want to use also presentation materials or something else. And then you also have to give a title to your idea. So it should be a very brief summary of what your idea or the insight is about. So for instance, helping blind people to get groceries, something like that. So something a bit descriptive and rather short. And what you can do is also to add a couple of details about what the idea is about, and also if you're thinking about working on this idea with someone else. So let's say that you already know someone who's going to join the InnoDays that perhaps have complementary skills, and you would like to be in a team together. We'll try to accommodate these requests as much as possible. Just make your individual submission. So the 2 people who plan to work together, they still upload a video, and then they write in the comments, I would like to work on this idea with this other person, and we will try to match them. And this will also be helpful for us If you do not know anybody else, that's also not a problem. There will be a lot of people who don't know others. So just leave it blank and we will find a team for you. So that's what's supposed to happen by April 6th. And then on April 8th, we'll also have another short webinar where we will go a little bit more in detail about the sprint-based platform and about the process and how it looks like. It would be great if most of you could attend, because it would be nice to see the platform even before the event, but we will also try to make sure that at least the team leader of each team joins, so that at least one person knows the platform a little bit better in preparation of the event. And if not, we're gonna record the session, and then there will be like both us and the lead mentors who can help you in case you have questions throughout the event on how to use it. But for now, just focus on the video and on uploading it in this first workspace. So that's it from me. And you will receive an invitation. So far you are not part of this, so do not start looking for things. They will come very soon. Maybe another thing to add, you will receive different invitation to the platform depending on the country or the time zone that you have indicated. So we have Europe, we have China, and we have US, because that's where most of the participants are from. But if you happen to be from India or from Indonesia, as some of you are, then we will try to match you with the time zone that is the closest to your country, so that you don't have to stay up too late. So that's, yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Marta. Now we're going to open it up to questions. Go ahead and post those in the group chat, and I will relay them to the team. And now is your time to ask those, and think about how you're going to address this challenge and work through this digital virtual format over the next week and a half. Benedict is asking, how big will the teams be? There'll be teams of 5 students.
Approximately. Not bigger than 5.
4 or 5. Yeah.
4 or 5. Yeah.
And Emily is asking whether we'll be assigned to teams based on our interests and skill sets. If they have skills that span across multiple categories, how can they indicate that?
One thing that we will suggest to do, and we'll write this in the guidance. I think it would be nice if you feel you're predominantly somebody with a design background, then under your display name you could add D for design, and then your first name, technical T_, and B_. So that way we would have a good overview in terms of the profiles. We'll explain that again. But otherwise you can add sort of your skill sets either in the video directly or as a comment when you upload the video. So as Marta explained, we'll look for sort of patterns as the inspirations and the ideas come in, to then cluster the ideas and trying to bring together the teams that have a shared interest in these ideas, and also have a mix of skills.
Also, to complement on that, we will try to have most of the teams where the 3 different skills are covered. But of course, there might be some variations. So some teams maybe will have just 2 roles. So if you have this kind of multidisciplinary profile, it's actually very welcome. So just at registration, maybe register as, again, if you're an engineer, but we also some design interest, then you can indicate that you have more of a technical background. But then in the comments, when you submit your idea or when you pitch in the video, you can also add, I also have this other skill set, and then we'll try to put you in a team that is maybe weaker on the design side so that you can kind of jump in. So that's actually, it's very nice if you have more skills.
I'd just add a comment on the, for people with multidisciplinary skill profiles, if there's a side of your skill set that you're particularly interested in focusing on through this event, feel free to emphasize that as well. So if you're an engineer and a designer and you are more interested in working, flexing the design muscle, let us know. Passing on a question that's focusing on the level of completion and how fleshed out the product needs to be designed for the deliverables. I'm going to open that up both to InnoDays and the EDF team in terms of, could you provide a little bit of color around what you expect in terms of deliverables and completeness?
Maybe we'll let EDF first share sort of the expected outcomes. David, Katie, Paul, what will be a great outcome in terms of the ideas? We didn't talk too much about the call to action or the scope, the expected outcomes yet. So maybe you can start off by just saying what will be interesting outcomes for you. What are you looking for? And then I can answer the general question about the type of prototype that we would like to see in the end.
Maybe to touch on that briefly, I think there's a combination of maybe 3 basic aspects, and to your point, a little bit about the types of people that could be involved in this. The design aspect could be a design of a vehicle look or some of the features it might have, or from a systems perspective of how it interacts with the grid or energy, collection and the distribution aspects of that. From a technical perspective, getting more into the features from, again, sort of the mobility aspect, from the energy aspect, how it may intersect with other types of systems. And then again, from the business aspect, the business models, specific innovations where people might be combining different aspects to be able to create more value for the riders, for energy companies to be more efficient perhaps, or society, of course, which might benefit from a variety of different aspects and combinations. Katie or David, any other points to add?
Well, I think we need to be realistic that you have 2 days. So there is a limit to what you can do in 2 days. For me, I would love to see 3 outputs. One would be the logic behind what you've done, so effectively a business model, describing what the problem is and how you're going to solve it. The second is some sort of prototype or pitch deck that presents that. And finally, I think it'd be great if people can share, if people can create pitch videos that present their idea, because that obviously it gives you the ability to combine the logic and some sort of demo of a rough and ready prototype.
Katie, anything general to add in terms of your expectations? What kind of ideas you would like to see, or what kind of elaboration level you'll be excited by?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, like I know a lot of traditional hackathons really emphasize a working product at the end, and I think given the virtual aspect, and I actually think it's maybe less effective even to focus so much on making sure it totally works and more of just the logic flow, that it makes sense. Yeah, so anywhere, I don't know, between a POC and a working product.
Yeah.
Maybe to add on this, this is Paul again. From my experience working with you last year, I think some of the teams did an amazing job. I remember one team just used the whiteboard to be able to diagram very easily with some good drawing skills, how their system might work and what it might look like. So they were able to video that as an example. I think one of the tools which you shared with me was called Powtoon, perhaps to David's point of being able to create a little video with something. And so we've used that internally. Some of the other teams developed some cardboard box and maybe quick little app or different aspects to be able to prototype it. I think any of those things to be able to convey the concept, but maybe as Katie mentioned, it's really be able to provide, maybe to David's term, the logic and the concept, and especially some understanding of what the system, the business model would be, and how they work together, not to refine them particularly overly.
Absolutely. So I can quickly comment on the general expectations that we have from the InnoDays side. So each team will have to create a short video where you demonstrate your prototype. So it won't be another pitch where you show slides, but you have to show how your solution will work. You have to find ways to make your ideas tangible. That can be a digital artifact, or it can be photos or a video of something physical that you create, a model. So find a creative way to convey your solution. And normally we have the Prototype Expo where we say you have to make your idea tangible. I mean, we'll have to translate that into the digital realm, finding ways to compellingly communicate how your solution will look like. And we will offer different tools for you to use. So the more elaborate, the better in terms of design. But I think as the whole EDF team mentioned, it's not only about the design and making something look great. You should also think about the business model, how this solution can work to deliver value for the customers and the partners that will be involved in this solution. Generally, when we have the evaluation of the prototypes at the end of the process, we will ask jury members to look at 5 criteria. The first is innovativeness. So how unique, how innovative is your idea? Second one is feasibility. How realistic is the implementation? And how well did you think through all the different components that have to come together in order to make this idea happen? Challenge fit is the third criteria, and that looks at how well does your idea respond to the challenge question posed by our company partner EDF. And then presentation, how you present your prototype, how well you developed the artifact that visualizes your idea. That's the fourth criteria. And then for the fifth criteria, that's the motivation of you or your team to continue taking this idea to the next level will also weigh in the sort of evaluation that we will ask the company partners as well as the mentors to give you feedback on your ideas and prototypes that you created during the InnoDays.
Thomas, this is Paul again. I'm just realizing that it would be good for teams to not necessarily overly focus on the energy or power aspect, but at least to keep it in mind with perhaps some back of the envelope calculations so that one doesn't presuppose that we can violate any laws of physics.
Yeah, so with regards to the feasibility component, and I think, some of the participants might not yet know EDF, but keeping the energy perspective in mind as you create the solutions, the implications for an energy provider. Maybe one of you can quickly say 1 or 2 lines about EDF in general, just to make sure everybody understands the company background and why you're particularly interested in this topic.
Sure. EDF is one of the largest, if not the largest, power producer in the world, with a very large number of energy generation assets around the world. And most of the new growth is in renewables, wind and solar. One of the other things we do, in addition to generating the power and selling the power in a number of countries around the world, is on the energy supply to electric vehicles. So we have built out and acquired a number of EV charging companies related primarily to workforce charging in the US, but in other countries it's for private vehicle charging, perhaps along a highway or in the UK and in different places. So I think EV charging, so vehicle charging, and the distribution of energy to those vehicles very efficiently is definitely of key interest. Katie or David, any other aspects?
I think if I can add something based on some experience with previous InnoDays, like normally the best solutions are not those that are maybe like the most advanced or those with too many good ideas or potentially good ideas, but they're those that are a little bit more focused, so that maybe decide to take a certain angle or certain problem that is perhaps niche, but is the starting point to something else. So try to think about if after the InnoDays you become the project manager of your idea, so how do the next steps look like? So try to show that you have a good understanding of the problem that you're planning to address related to this challenge. Try to have some research that grounds why your solution would make sense, and try to have a rough understanding of what you would do, like what would you start with and what would you continue. So take the InnoDays not as something where you develop something finished, but something where you develop a possible agenda or a starting point for a longer project. So just keep that in mind. Try to be maybe more focused, but very specific on what you are planning to do later on, and not a lot of insights on different things. So I think that's generally a good thing. And then in, like as Thomas mentioned, and also David before, you will also be asked to create a pitch deck, which is a good way to sort of present your story. And then in the pitch deck, eventually you can also add appendixes with additional calculation and other things, but keep your story somehow to the point. So what's the problem? What's the solution? How does this sort of initial prototype might look like? What's the business model? And what the next steps could look like. So fairly simple and sort of coherent across all these different elements. It's something that normally works well.
And I got a question in a private channel here around a guidebook laying out this process. So we do have a companion where each step is explained. So you will be guided by not just this companion, but also by us as the organizer, and together with our lead mentors and mentors, from your additional idea to the prototype and how to present that in the pitch deck, and the video will help you get the most out of the 40 hours. So,
actually, the companion is embedded in the platform. So for each of these steps, you will see in the guidance a description and also some tips and also some tools that you might want to use. So there will be, for instance, different examples of how to test your idea, different examples of prototyping methods. So you can also rely on that as sort of advice that will kind of guide you through. So make sure to look at the resources and also to ask us questions, because we will be connected and your lead mentors will be connected too. So you're in the guidance tab. I don't know if.
mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? Can you still hear us?
Doesn't look like.
That is all the questions we have in the queue right now, and we're running to the end of our time slot. I can, a few of us can stay on for a while as we wrap this up if anybody has any last pressing questions. Otherwise, we're really excited to see all of your videos come in and help with the matching, and are really excited about the event next week. In the meantime, look to Slack if you have any additional questions that come up after this. There's a channel for questions. There's also a channel for resources where we can share updates about resources that you can use. And thank you so much to all of you for staying up late, getting up early, or making time in the middle of your afternoon. And a big thanks to InnoDays and EDF for helping organize this and putting this on.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks to EDF for explaining the challenge to everyone. And I think the EDF team is also available then to answer questions via Slack. So if you want feedback on your initial ideas, then ask them there and share your inspirations before submitting them. Our goal is really to collect a lot of good ideas, and we're greatly looking forward to see the first inspirations and insights coming in on Sprint Base. And yeah, excited to kick it off then in less than 10 days.
Thomas, maybe a quick question here from Paul. Our friends from the Micromobility group, are they involved at all?
Yeah, we'll have a few mentors from their network, and I'm still waiting to hear back from them whether they could do a sort of a short kickoff talk or an input during the program. And today in their newsletter, I think they should have included a call for additional mentors. So we'll be able to have some experts from their network as well.
Okay.
Maybe,
I was wondering to one of the
for everybody to look, we can share also the link to their website. This is it's a quite specific group of people who has an interest in micromobility. They organize very nice conferences. So maybe you can also sign up to their newsletter and look what they're working on. And I will share the link with everybody because I think it could be relevant.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is if we could get, because they've had some very nice materials and
Yes.
articles and whatnot. Of course, anybody could go and read them all at their leisure. But if you want to accelerate the teams, perhaps they could offer to just provide us the PDFs of some of their key parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll follow up with them, and I think they either tomorrow or even today they have a webinar around micromobility during the coronavirus crisis, which is also one angle you could, as participants, take a look at. You know, how can we help ensure that food and medicine gets to people who are not able to move during our current health crisis, and how can we reimagine mobility for the better after the crisis. So we will also probably be able to give out a special recognition for the ideas that are relevant during or after the COVID crisis.
I pasted the link to the podcast in the chat, and maybe we can post it on Slack as well for those who are interested.
They do have currently a month free membership, and I'll follow up also with them so we can find a good way to share those insights. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
And if you guys happen to have access to any industry reports, perhaps we could post those as well, and we can also look at see what we have that we can share.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that goes all to everyone. If you come across something interesting that would be great to read or look at for everyone, then please share it. this phase now of inspiration and field research is really about collecting great insights as starting points for your ideas then. So I think, yeah, we have the unique opportunity to collaborate as a big group with different national perspective, different regions. So let's use the time leading up to the InnoDays to collect great insights and share those. Final thing from my side. So if you really want to work on your idea and you did not yet find people with a design or engineering or business background from our community, please feel free out also to bring on additional participants. So the InnoDays are open for everyone to join, and the more the better, and the more diverse, the more interesting it will be. So yeah, feel free to reach out to your friends and network so that you can bring together a great team.
And if you can find anybody, we'll find a team for you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. And have a good night, morning, or afternoon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
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 Yeah.
Thank you.